Hello, and welcome back to the Living on Lemonade podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lauren. Today, I have a special treat for you. I have my friend Theresa Porter back with me. We are doing part two of our chat and our interview. So this time, I get to interview Theresa, and she's in the hot seat. So welcome, Theresa.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for this one. So this time I'm getting the questions.
And just for anyone who's new to the podcast or I guess the YouTube channel once I get this uploaded, Teresa, just if you want to take a moment to introduce yourself to the audience, and I know you'll be sharing it on your podcast as well.
Yeah, so I'll just do the quick hi, everybody. Theresa Porter, welcome to my podcast too. So I'm going to post it on my end as well. But yeah, so again, here with Lauren, and I'm really excited for the questions coming my way. And yeah, basically, I'm a psychic medium who really dove deep into my abilities by quitting my corporate job and just taking everything head on and loving it. Wrote a book, started my podcast, which was kind of like a runoff of the book. And I do my mediumship. I do guided meditations. I have a course that I'm actually starting up. But everybody can find that on, I try to streamline it, everything Theresa Porter. So website, teresaporter.ca. Almost everything on social media is Theresa Porter. So pretty easy to find me.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'll link your website in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wrote some questions earlier today, and I was getting curious, like, what do we want to talk about? And what I was curious about is essentially what you were just talking about, your book, which then became a podcast. And so what I wrote down, the number one is tell me about your podcast journey and why did you choose joy as a theme? And that will, I guess, naturally segue into like with your book as well.
Yeah. So the book was totally channeled, and it was really a really hefty part of my life when it kind of came through. It was almost like get out of the corporate world, do it, or like we're gonna have some stuff just kind of make you have to leave. So it was one of those, and I was pulling back, but then I realized what was happening, and I kept getting like the mental like we're doing it on purpose. It's time to leave. So after I wrote the book, and it was like all the information that I put into the book, it was like as soon as I put it in there, it was like poof gone. So it's like I could read the book and follow the lessons myself. And I was in a position where it was like I had been through so much in my life that it was to really kind of explain what joy was. It was like I didn't think I could do it myself. And I went through everything I did and what I thought joy was, and it changed and it changed and it changed. Certain aspects of it always stayed the same, but there was so much, I guess, just heartbreak, a lot of heartbreak that I went through, and a lot of trials and tribulations and life events, which I'm actually, I don't mind talking about, I'm very proud of because it's what formed who I am. But
Yeah.
after writing the book and kind of going through all that and looking at it and being like, well, what the hell is it? And then I started recognizing like it isn't anything in specific. It's just a state of mind. It's a choice. It's what you decide it to be. And that's where I decided that it would be really amazing because I feel like people look at me and they're like, wow, you got your stuff together. And I'm like, in a certain aspect, I do, but in other ways, like I feel like I'm still struggling to try to figure out what joy is for me on my own. And the podcast came to be again, I was called to it, but it was like it wasn't like do the podcast, this is what it's gonna be. It's like do a podcast, where you go. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, what is the most important thing to me right now? And it's the book. And it's like, what is joy? And I'm still trying to figure it out. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've got everything together to people. So the podcast was like the creation from the book of how people can really implement that into their lives. But it's also a journey of me finding my own and also helping others see that it's not one thing. It's anything. It's whatever you decide it to be. So yeah, a little long
Right.
winded.
And Well, no, that was great. That was great. And helping them find it within themselves, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like literally guiding people back to themselves so they can find it inside of themselves and what that looks like for them because there's societal norms would say like this is what happiness is, this is what joy is, and it's all external things, but the truth is it's not joy is an inside job, right?
Yeah, those expectations that we take on and we think are there. So it's yeah, it's the more in alignment we are with ourselves, the more joy we'll experience. So really, it's like find a inner alignment, find self alignment, and in that you will find joy. So yeah, the big
Yeah, and
journey.
I yeah, exactly. And I remember when you were first channeling the book and you I was one of your guinea pigs, right? For
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
few weeks there. That was a lot of fun just taking us through different like a different lesson and exercise each week and then a discussion. It was really cool.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I love teaching, so that whole process was amazing. Yeah.
Yes. And have you always like have you always known you wanted to write a book or was this just literally something that happened on the journey back to yourself?
Yeah, literally just it was it just I woke up one day and it was like boom, it was in my head and I had this like it was almost like a panic. Like I got to get this on paper. I got to get it on paper. And then I started writing
Wow.
it out and it just flowed. Yeah. So this was totally not me at all. Like no credit at all. Don't give it to me. I just took what they put in my head and put it out in paper. So even the quotes, because I have little quotes in the book and it was my sister's idea. And she was like, you know
Yeah.
what would make this better? If there was little quotes to break it up. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. You know what? If it's meant to be, they'll give me some. I sat down, I closed my eyes, and I just put my phone on record. And then I just started saying what was coming.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's all
That's
them.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually one of my questions, like how would you best describe what it's like to channel the writing just for anyone who's not familiar with that term? Like what does it mean to you and what's kind of the process?
So there's two ways that I would kind of explain it. One is that it's like somebody else's thought that comes into your head. It's almost like when you're speaking to somebody and as they're telling you, it's like the information of what they're explaining to you is like coming into your mind and you're like, "Oh, okay." So there's that aspect of it's like the information coming in and I'm going, "Oh, wow." So it's like as that's coming into me, like how the book did, I'm like, oh wow, oh my God. And I feel like that's even like the psychic mediumship. It's information they're bringing in and putting in. And then there's the aspect of it when I'm channeling and I kind of give up control and I let them speak through me even. So
Hmm.
there's sometimes where I'm like, okay, whatever you want. And um, I'm not gonna say I'm fully aware of what I'm saying, but I'm not fully aware. So it's almost like I couldn't repeat what's coming through as like the channeled message, but I'm definitely I can see images. It's almost like they're showing me pictures so that
Cool.
I'm getting it as whatever is coming out. But I am told that whenever I channel, my voice changes up a bit. So there is changes, I guess, that you can sense with me as I'm doing it. I asked my sister to explain it to me once, and I said, "Look, I just want to channel." I said, just tell me whatever it's like. I said, ask me the flimsiest questions you want. Doesn't matter. I just want to get the vibe of from somebody who can tell me because people are like, wow, that's so cool. And then that's it. I'm like, oh, okay. I got the
Yeah.
curiosity too. So when I did it with my sister, she goes, oh my God. She's like, just, it's like the presence of something completely different and you can just feel it. And I'm like, I guess that's kind of how I feel. It's the presence of something different that's just kind of stepping in.
Yeah, we're like a conduit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so
Well,
I
like
I think
literally a channel.
yeah, so so it's like the 2. So where it's like they flood my brain with all this information and they're like, "Put it down, put it down." I'm like, "Okay." And then the other times where it's the more common channeling that people are used to, which is, like Bashar or Abraham Hicks or, something
Okay.
like that, where you're sitting and watching. So for me, I see it as different avenues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like you're explaining what it feels like to you, and what it's like for the person witnessing it.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool. And I know I've done lots of like automatic writing where you essentially just go into kind of a meditative state, and then when you feel the urge to start writing, you just write down the words that come to you. And the what I always find interesting is the it sounds like my voice in my head as if it were my thoughts, but I don't feel connected to them. Again, it's like someone's talking to me through my own voice.
yeah,
And if I were to like write down pages of things and then close the book, I won't remember what I wrote down. I can go back and go, "Whoa, what is that?" Like that's
yeah,
cool. So it's a really interesting experience.
yeah, yeah. It is. It's amazing. I think it's fantastic. I love doing it. It's different
Yes.
every time. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And I'm also interested just about the journey to being self-published and stuff. I'm thinking like if there's anyone who's listening that they're thinking about they've wanted to write a book all their life, or they're thinking like you're a perfect example, you can make it happen. So just what was that journey like after you woke up with the urge to put it all down, and then it's like, and then what, right?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways to actually get picked up as an author. Is not exactly the easiest thing. So a lot of the
Right.
times, if you want to write a book and get it done, it's self-publishing, right? So you can do it in a few different ways. Like you can do it, and you are going to have to have some money to put toward it. So where you're actually creating the book, so you have to find a company that's willing to put it together. I always suggest for people have someone read it, have a proofreader, somebody who can go over it and catch things, right? So it's like put your book together and then have it reviewed and be ready for the criticism. Like you
Okay.
have to be open. So me, it was like almost like people were reading it and they're like, wow, it's an easy read and it just kind of flowed. And I'm like, well, if I wrote it, it would probably come out differently. But I was like, I was right when I was getting told. So I felt like for me, it was almost like it was coming out in the way they expected it to. But now I'm working on my own work, which is my own life story. So for
Right.
that, it's like I have to be ready for like, hey, you know what? This doesn't sound right. That doesn't key together. And it's like as much as you have your own like it's like part of yourself that's on this paper and you really want people to love it as much as you do, you have to be okay with people coming and being like, this doesn't make sense, or that doesn't sound right, or this could come off wrong. So it's like open yourself up and be ready for like the constructive criticism. Don't look at it as just criticism. It's constructive. It's getting you on your way. It's part of the journey. And then once you get there, it's like the decision of, with the company I decided to go with was Balboa Press. When I spoke to them, again, I was kind of like, because I went to bed that night and I was like, okay, if I'm actually getting this published now, I'm like, I got to know who to go to. As I was waking up that morning, right before I woke up, they were like, get on the internet right now and call Balboa Press. And I was like, who the heck is Balboa Press? And I actually had to look it up. So it's like, I guess the parent company is,
Hay
oh my
House,
God,
right?
Hay House. Yeah, sorry. Thank
Yeah,
you. It's Hay House.
I
So it's
got you.
yeah. So for me, who can never remember stuff, so it's like they're like the parent company is Hay House. So I was like, what? They're not going to want anything to do with this. And I called them and it's this girl called. She was like, oh, you just happened to catch me, and I was like, oh, what a fluke.
That's
And,
funny.
yeah, she was like, well, I have a minute. What's your book about? And I explained the whole thing, and she's like, are you serious? That's exactly the kind of stuff we do. So for them, it's a little bit more of it's a US company and I'm Canadian, but it's a little bit more of an expensive process depending on what you want. Like you can go up and up and up, and there's always like these
Right.
these these things. That's why I'm saying like there's different ways of doing it. I just did what I felt like I was being led to do. You can do it for cheaper. I did put a good amount of money into getting it published, which I do not regret. I love the book. I love how it turned out. I even remember seeing the cover before I actually made it.
That's
So
really cool.
yeah, so that cover, yeah.
I
So
got it right
I
here.
remember they were like, "Hey, we'll send you some pictures and stuff. You can get an idea." I said, "No, as soon as I see it, I will know it." So yeah, I was like, "It's gonna be white, and it's gonna like fade into like some yellows and orange."
Yeah,
And the guy's like, "Huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't trust me. It's gonna be there. I'll see it." And it was like 2 minutes, and I sent him. I'm like, "Yep, it's this one." And he goes, "Oh my god, that is what you said." I'm like, "Yes, it is."
that's
So
awesome.
yeah, I already knew. So it's like the process. It's like you have to decide how much do you want to put into it. I put a little bit more because I wanted to kind of get it out there. And like I said, I don't regret it. But you can always self-publish and do it personally and promote your book yourself. You just have to be ready to do the legwork, and then you can get it done for like a couple thousand. I put a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I did it through Balboa, and I loved it, and they were great, and I had no clue what I was doing. So even if you're someone who knows nothing, it's like just start with the easiest part, which is putting it on paper, get it reviewed, not by just a friend, but someone who knows what they're doing. There's people out there. It's easier to find than you think, and then just pick how you want to do it. You can even Google self-publishing.
Cool.
So yeah, we'll see how I publish my next book. I'm already partway working through it, so we'll see how that one gets done.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And you already answered one of my other questions. So,
Oh,
but
okay.
I did have another I did have another one pop in. What I was noticing just through your story and the way that you're telling it is there's a theme here of true like surrender,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And can you speak a little bit to that in terms of like, have you always been this laid back and just like letting things run its course, or is there like an experience that comes to mind, or is it just your journey, like a string of events? How have you gotten to where you are and just been able to be like, well, I'll do it, but you got to show me how, and then the things come in and you just do the action, right?
Yeah. So I was definitely not always like this. So I come from a very abusive home, one that left me with head injuries that caused epilepsy. So my entire brain is completely covered with epileptic spots.
Wow.
And I went from the abusive family into an abusive relationship with a narcissist that was not easy because, you know, there's no arguing with narcissists. But there's also, not only is there no arguing with them, but if you don't do as you're told, it's like there's consequences. So I went from the abusive family to the abusive relationship to 7 years on my own of trying to rebuild myself just to get into another abusive relationship that was abusive behind closed doors. It was abusive
Mm,
in ways that were so new to me that I couldn't wrap my head around what this man was doing. And it's
okay.
like everybody would come around and they'd be like, wow, he's so amazing. And I'd be like, yeah, he's got to be amazing because everybody keeps saying it. And I was
Mm,
running myself so dry by trying to keep up and keep up and keep up. But because of where I came from, it was like I never felt like I was good enough. I never felt like I could be me or truly kind of be true to myself in any way. And I went from like this abusive relationship and then being in housing with two kids, one a newborn and a 3-year old, not even having money to put food on the table, starving myself and doing everything I need could to just get things by. Like the struggle was real. So I never even had time, I feel like, to really stop and lean on myself to be able to say, okay, what is the question? So it wasn't until that second relationship ended and I was literally like having breakdowns at work, and my boss was like, this is not safe. I even had a counselor who was like, do you have somewhere else you can go? This is dangerous. He punched in the side of my car, fist through the door. Like it was insanity. And it was, but the hardest part was that it was like, I was so used to the violence that that's not even the stuff that bothered me, because like a lot of that stuff happened before the breakup even happened, and the breakup happened because he cheated, and
yeah.
that was it. And it was like he was already getting in with other girls, and I'm still going, oh wait, are we not working on this? And then I just closed off completely. And it was, that was the catalyst. I was out of the province for a funeral, and he was in a different part of the province with someone who wasn't me. And it was
Yeah.
like I had a huge crash. I had a massive depression. I went from where I was to being told that the only reason I had anything was because of him. And I was like, I actually was the one paying all the bills. I paid for everything. There was jokes about me being his sugar mama. And it was actually sad because I was like, wow, I'm good now. Like I'm financially, that's how I took it. That's how sad it was. And it was like it took the crumbling of all of this and for me to stop and go, you know what? I don't need to defend myself to any of these people because if any of them knew me, they would know that that's not true. And I had to step away and I had a huge crash and I had another seizure and then my epilepsy was kind of like touch and go. And then I had a doctor's appointment with a neurologist who was like, "This is frontal lobe." He's like, "This if this continues, this could be it."
Wow.
And so I basically got told like you could just not wake up one day, like you could go to bed and just not wake up one day. And then COVID hit, and I felt like it was the best thing in the world for me. I wanted to just be closed away from everything and everybody. I couldn't, like, I can't even begin to tell you how hard it was for me to just get up in the morning and go to work. It was like I just wanted to stay home. But the position that I held, I still had to go to the office. But the thing was, is when I went, nobody was there. So it was
Okay.
almost like I would go so early in the morning, everything was dark, everything was black. I would put my headphones on and I would just work away. And it was like that was the time when I felt the calmest because it was like I actually for the first time ever was able to shut everything out. I was away from my house. I was away from any memories, anything I looked at, any responsibilities. It was like everything was gone. I went to this job. I knew it inside and out, and I didn't need to ask anybody. Some of the people at the company didn't even know what I did. They just knew that I had to do it and it was important.
Yeah.
And it was like I needed it. And then it was as I did that, I started working through the depression and everything. And then I got the key of like, okay, get ready because shit's about to change. And then I moved to the middle of nowhere, out close to the country, and I just fully, yeah, I just dove deep into it, and I think I needed it, and I took time off. So I wrote the book, and then when it was done, I took time off to stop and think back on the growth that I made, the person that I become, what I had accomplished, being proud of myself. And yeah, so it was like, it was a long journey to get to where I could actually stop. And I think that the only reason I got there was because I got so tired. It was like, it felt like my body was so broken and my heart was just tired. And I was like, my
Yeah.
body can't take anymore. And my heart is just, it just wants to like go to sleep. It's like, okay, we're done. And
Yeah.
I was there. I felt like when I started to really stop and go, okay, what now? It's because I felt like I didn't know what else to do. And it was like that moment where you just stop and you feel like you've hit the rock bottom and you're just bouncing. I was like that skipping stone, but instead of on top of the water, I was like bouncing off the bottom. And it was like I just
Yeah.
stopped and I went, what now? I'm like, help me. I'm like, I'm done. And it was like, hey, here's a book. I'm like, okay, I'm on it. And I just started going with it. And now it's like the story of my life is just winging it as I get by. So I think even the renovations that I was talking to you about, I'm doing now. Like I'm just winging it. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah.
So in part, it almost sounds like you had a moment when you said like I'm done. It's just like you had to surrender because you had exhausted all of the options you had. Uh, Essentially, if this kind of lands for you, you are been in survival mode for most of your life,
Yep.
and then when you say you crashed, it's like life kind of just launched you into like a dark night of the soul, and then you find yourself in this void during COVID of like something's got to give, there's got to be something different. You just like feel it because there's
Mhm.
what is left when you hit the bottom, which I know how that feels when you just there's like a timeline change of like you can't go back there, but you don't really know how to move forward, but you know that you have to move forward.
You got to do
And
something.
well, and then that's where the surrender comes in because you're just
Yeah.
like, it's dark in here and I don't really know how to navigate this. I just know I can't turn around and go back. Like it's not possible anymore. So like,
Yeah.
okay, help me out here. And you know, it was in book form for you. So that's like, that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. I just the journey to getting there and to getting to where I am. And it was like I noticed myself and it was like different things. You know how sometimes you come across stuff and you hear somebody say it and it's like that pinnacle moment of like ding. I get those all the time now because whenever I'm not picking up on something, it's like my guides will be like, open your phone, and I'll just open my phone, open like TikTok or something, and or Facebook or whatever, and like some sort of video will come up and it'll like hit hard, and I'll be like, okay, I get it, because
Yeah.
it was like I got to the point where it was like I would tell people anything and everything about myself, and I was like, oh, it's because I'm open. I'm open, and it's because I don't care, and I'm proud of who I am. And then I heard somebody say something and it so rang through to me, and it was like how when people get in relationships and when you get married and then you start to like feel like you can open up and you feel like you just open yourself up and you can be safe and it's like your safe place, and it's like no matter what you do, no matter what you say, you feel like this person's got your back, and it's like it's that part of yourself where you feel like you can finally relax and open up. And
Yeah.
it had more to it than that, but basically what it made me realize was is I was making myself an open book, not for the right reasons. I was making myself an open book to say this is all the crap, this is all my junk, this is everything, so run now. And it was almost like instead of it being like a this is me and this is who I'm proud of, it was like this light bulb moment of this is me, this is everything I've been through, this is everything I've done just to keep things running.
Yeah.
And this is why you shouldn't be with me, because I was so afraid of letting love back in because I had felt like I had been crushed so many times. So it was like
Yes.
because I had epilepsy from being beat when I was young, but the grand mal seizures didn't actually start until after my first relationship because he was violent
Wow.
too. And I never said anything to him about it. Like I never put that on him. And I think that's just kind of like the whole like dealing with a narcissist. It doesn't matter whether you tell them or not. But it's
Right.
like the fact of the matter is that's part of my journey. And I don't care who thinks anything about it. And I don't care who says, oh, it's a lie, it's true, it's this, it's that, there's more to it. It doesn't matter. And that's like what I feel like I finally grasped was it doesn't matter. And you know what? It's okay to kind of have all this. And it's like, it's not like baggage in the sense of having to pull it along. It's like I've got it on my backpack. It's on my back and I'm carrying it along happily and I've got the strength to do so. It's like this is me. And if you can't cope with that, that's okay. But if you feel like, wow, I still love you, like I would be okay with that too, right? Like obviously I'm single, but I finally got to myself to a point where it's like I feel like I would not be so afraid, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like this whole starting my business. Somebody came and started my website for me. It was like, you got to do this. I'm like, okay. I feel like they're telling me that right now, anyways. And then it was like doing the book and like everything just kind of unfolded the way it was meant to. But I think that's the biggest thing is just finding grace within the fault as you continue. And when you think you've got something, just consider the other options or the other avenues because maybe you don't got it as sternly or as strongly as you think you do. Because like that one little video that I get guided to watch will just make it all crumble and have me go, oh my God.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm a mess. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's work on this.
Well, and I mean, I think we're here. It's we're here to learn. I call it Earth School. Like
Yeah.
we didn't come here to be perfect because we wouldn't have come here then. There would have been no point because there's nothing to learn if we're perfect and we're all healed. We came here literally to heal for our entire life. That's like that's the extent of it in my from how I feel about my own journey and understandings of things. And um
When I
I'm
first
I'm
when I first asked about like what is life, like can you like this was like years ago, and I was like what is this? They're like, this is when Sims came out. They're like, think of it like Sims. Is kind of like how I got told.
It's literally like a video game.
It is. It's like we're the
Yeah.
character and our higher self, we're like playing the character. And it's like, and
It's
now
so
as
weird.
when I connect more, I'm like, there's multiple people who can select to play this character. And it's like, that's why I have a very different viewpoint on the Akashic records, because I think that for me, the way that it's been shown is it's almost like it's like a dictionary, like a categorized options of all the life options that you can choose from.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it's like it has like it's set out points. Like if you want to live this life, you have this event, this like there's some that are defined and some that are free will, free reign, do
Yes.
what you want. There's a mix of it. And it's like you can pick a life that is so defined. You can pick a life that is just doing whatever you want. You can pick a life where it's like certain things are meant to happen and then you just kind of have fun in the middle. Like there's a lot of different, but it's almost like when we talk about like this life, it's more like this character and different souls can play this character. And it might
Huh.
come out a little bit different for each character, depending on the soul level or the soul, how it integrates or plays it. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
where me doing it right now, my soul, it's like this is how I'm leading it, but another soul might come in to live this life that I have, this person, this character. They might do some of the choices a little differently, maybe a little wiser than I did.
I,
So
I mean, but that's how we learn, right?
exactly, and I love
Like,
it. And I don't think I would be able to do what I do now if I didn't experience what I did, because with
no.
all the things I see, it's like you have to be okay with seeing that. Like I see beautiful things, but I see tough stuff too.
Well, and everything we've experienced has brought us to the moment that of where we are, and if we shame our past selves, like they brought us here. They had the strength to get us to where we are now, and we have to celebrate and love up on that version of us
Oh,
at
I do.
least enough to know that it's brought us where we are now. And if we're if we have the mindset and the desire to start to unpack these things, like in the course that I'm running right now, we're just it's all about the soul and all of that stuff. And the way I was kind of describing it, what was coming to me while I was teaching, I just saw it's like we all come here and we're super pure. Like if you meet children, they're so unfiltered, right? And they're so authentically themselves. They don't think about what they're saying. And it's not until society starts to groom them and program the brain, and it's like the computer game, right? They come in and they need to be programmed. But also deep down, like that higher part of ourselves, it knows how to run the thing, but we wouldn't learn the lessons unless we have the layers and the programming on top, so that we have to like work through it. So at one point I was like, we're basically like we're all just running around with a bunch of parkas on. It's just like
Yeah.
until we realize we're wearing a bunch of parkas of all the experiences, all the difficult things we've survived and like lived through, until we actually start to like look at those things and start to shed the layers, we're all running around with different parkas. We all have them. There's nobody gets out of it. It just looks different based on the experiences that we've had.
Yeah. Oh, so true. I
Yeah,
love
and it's just yeah, it's just a journey of taking off the parkas. Right.
it. Yeah, when do you get too warm?
I know. You like it's like you grow out of that. You start to, if you're on the journey and you're doing the work and you're conscious and mindful and curious about it. Curiosity is like my word. Like if you can use that in your daily life and always be curious about things, you will always have an opportunity to grow and learn. And those of us who are curious, my one of my mentors, she always says, the lucky ones pay attention. And it's so true. It's like the more curious we are, the more that things will be presented and brought to our awareness. And if we can give ourselves enough grace and love to just see it for what it is and not be victim to it, there goes another parka, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like those commercials where they show people just ripping a shirt off and then ripping another shirt off and then they just keep ripping the
Exactly.
shirt off.
But that it's funny. It's just like, I don't know, life's so weird, but through all of the deep soul journey that I've been on since I lost my dad, I get all kinds of weird like imagery and um yeah, imagery and just like ideas of what it means to me so that I can navigate it.
Yeah, I love that. It's like that as this process has gone, it's really opened you up more. And it's like every day is like a little bit further, a little bit further. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have also learned to surrender because it's just like that's where the magic is because our human brain can never anticipate or dream up the beautiful things that can unfold in our life if we surrender and follow the breadcrumbs of what we feel pulled and joyful towards. There's nothing more magical in this life, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's why like I love like my book, if people read it and they follow it along. And it's like if I talk to them afterwards and I listen to them talking about like the moments where they had the epiphanies and the big changes.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. Those are
That's
beautiful moments.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have one more question just to kind of like wind down a little bit now that you've given us a piece of your journey and the kind of the events and the catalysts to bring you where you are. How are you now? Like you talked about your epilepsy and stuff, and I remember I think it was when I was in Cambridge because you were being careful about, was it gluten? There were certain foods that I think you were you're being mindful of, and that had to do with the epilepsy, right?
Yeah, so there was a lot of things. So I started noticing, so I think this was when they really like my guides, and when I say they, I mean
Yep.
whoever's helping me out
The
here,
collective.
the
Yeah.
collective started like almost like messing with certain foods. Like it was like the we're getting you ready for this. And I was
Okay.
eating different things and I'm like, why is it like making me sick? Why is it making me bad? And it was like, no, we just don't want you having that. And it was like, and I was like, is it because of my illness? Is it because of like, and I was trying to
Okay.
figure it out because I was going through the whole trying to get my epilepsy under order again. And because the I had just come out of that relationship. And the person
Okay.
that I was with knew stress was really, really bad for me and that I had to keep things stress free. So he would kind of
Yeah.
pop out of nowhere and just start screaming at me. And it was like the most like panicked, like, so I was
Yeah,
like, it's,
dysregulating.
yeah. So as soon as I had the time out and I had the time to relax, it was like I had that calming moment and it was like bam, they were hitting and I was like I didn't even know what to do, and it was like I had a contractor and he like I had a bad one while he was there, and I woke up like on the couch facing the couch and he had his knee in my back and I'm like what's going on. He's like, sorry, you were going crazy and you were going to fall off the couch. I didn't want to like touch you because it might be awkward. And
Yeah.
there was like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
awkward moment of this guy standing there with his knee in my back. I'm like, thanks, pretty sure he gave me a bruise there, but thanks, thanks for your consideration.
Yeah, I hope that wasn't worse than falling off the couch.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I think it would have been this. It was better.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like as soon as I thought I was getting better, and then all of a sudden I had
Yeah.
a night where I went to IKEA with my daughter, my youngest, and she was supposed to have a weekend with her dad right after, and he agreed that I could go to IKEA with her because she was going to pick out some furniture for her new bedroom, and then I would go drop her off at his place, which was far away. So by the time I got home, I was pretty late. And as I was coming out of the car and locking the door, the guy that I had just gotten out of the relationship with, my phone goes off. And I look at my phone and I'm walking toward my front door and it says, pretty late to get home, isn't it? He was watching me and I didn't know where he was, but he was watching me and he was texting me as I was walking back in my house. The panic that hit my heart in that moment,
Oh
because
my gosh.
everything that had happened, and he's a big fella. He's a big fella. And all I'm thinking is, if he's mad and he's watching and he's going to come out at me in the middle of the night, I'm in trouble. So it was like this panic hit me, and I went back in the house, and it was like right back to square one. And it's funny because, through all of that, I actually had reached back out to him. Well, before
Wow.
that part, but yeah, I had, because I think I had hit a low, and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm dying. Because you have that moment where you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I think this is it. And I actually went to reach out to him to say, hey, like, I think this might be it for me. Like, the doctors they're not, it's not looking good. Like, frontal lobe, I'm not
Yeah.
well. And I told him, and it was almost like I was hoping for some sort of sympathy. Because you know how when things go wrong, if you're so used to abuse, you go back to your abuser. It's exactly what I
Yeah.
did. So I went back to my abuser to say, hey, and he goes, oh, well, I wish you well. And I remember sitting on the stairs inside my house, the stairs leading to the basement. I remember just sitting there, and I was sitting on the stairs, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have anybody. And it was like this epiphany moment of like, it's just me. It's like I've got abusive exes, I got abusive family that I've cut ties with to protect myself. And
Mhm.
I felt more alone in that moment. And it was like, it was that moment that I stopped and went, okay, before I become the one that's lost, I need to figure this out. So yeah, I did. I was like working on the foods. They were making me sick. And so I was switching my diet. I was trying to switch routines. I was trying to get like on a better track.
Yeah.
What I was doing at that point. So crazy, eh?
Yeah. And how are things now? How would you describe it? Like, I kind of,
Good.
I feel like you're on the other side of it because and you're thriving now, right? You have all these beautiful things happening and
Yeah. So there's still different aspects where it's like, I kind of wonder, like, what am I doing? Where am I going to go? How am I going to make this work? But it's like I've gotten to the point now where I'm just fully like, I'm going to have faith, because if I don't, I'm like, I'm going to panic. And I don't
yeah.
want to do that. I don't want to panic, because it's like the Renos, where I said certain things didn't work out the way that they're expected. It's like I knew. So I took certain avenues, because it was almost like, do this, do that. I'm like, okay. And then
Yeah.
I talked to somebody, and they're like, oh, the only thing that's protecting you is because you did this. And I'm like, like, funny
Ah,
how that worked out. So it's like all these different things that kind of keep reaffirming why I'm on the right route in terms of just trusting myself.
yeah.
But it's like I've had the epiphany of like everything of like my past, and like me as a person, me as a mother, me as like just a human being, me as a soul with feelings and emotions, and being okay with that, and knowing that I don't exactly have the easiest past, and it might be messy, but it's a beautiful one, because I wouldn't be who I am now. And I'm so happy with who I am now. And I think the only thing that bugs me is that there's this one person I know, and they're like, you're going to be that old single lady with nothing but cats, and you're going to be bitter and depressed. And I'm like, no, 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 no.
No way.
My happiness does not rely on being with anybody. If I'm going to be with somebody, it's because we're going to complement each other in the best way, but we are going to be happy with ourselves, for ourselves, and within that complementing of each other for each other. But we are not going to define our happiness on what the other person's doing. So I'm like, I am in an amazing place of whether I end up with somebody or not, I'm fine. No matter what direction my life takes now, it's like I've completely given up in terms of having faith of what my direction is and what I'm doing and the things that I'm creating and curating, and how I'm putting that together. And the days where maybe it gets a little heavy, I step back when I need to. And I'm okay doing that. And it's like I have learned to give myself the grace. And I think that is the most important part. Is it's like I still have things that come along that are hefty, and that's okay. It's like actually literally um just the other day, and I only just heard some news about it today. Actually, this morning I heard more about it. Just the other day, like 2 days ago. Was it yesterday? No, it was 2 days ago. No, actually, sorry, it was yesterday morning. So I know this is coming out later, but from where we're recording it right now, I got a phone call. And like I said, I have no connection with any of my family, but I have one sister that I speak with. And I'm the
Mhm.
youngest of six. And she called me and I could tell something was wrong. And I was like, what's that? And she said, our mom had a stroke and it was a bad one. And I know she's already had a stroke and apparently she's in hospital and she's not well. They're not sure how things are going to go. And I felt bad because I think she was expecting more from me. And as soon as I got off the phone, I stopped and I said, okay, I can't feel bad because I don't know these people. I don't know them. I know them from when I was little and I know them from the abusive times. I don't hold any hatred or ill will or anything because I understand that my mother has mental illness and I
Yeah.
understand that my parents did the best they could with what they knew. Like, by no
Yeah.
means do I want anybody doing anything bad to anybody in my family, but I just choose to not want anything to do with that. And also, I think that with my mom's mental state, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like she'll, like my sister will tell me she feels bad. I'm like, does she feels bad? And that's fine. And I understand that, but it doesn't mean she wants me there. And that's
Yeah.
okay too. And I'm okay with that. And when she told me about the stroke, it didn't bug me because it was almost like hearing about someone else's someone and you feel bad for them, right?
Like you had
And
empathy for your sister,
I had
but
empathy
yeah.
for her. And then I stopped
Yeah.
and then I started feeling weird last night. And my friend was like, what's up? And I said, I feel odd. And I was talking to her and I said, oh my God, I think I know what's wrong. I said, I think I'm grieving the thought of what I always expected or felt I needed as a mom and never had. And it's the realization of she is my birth mother and she will never be able to be. And I kind of knew it, but it's like the realization of it hitting you to be the mom that I had wished that maybe I would have in some way.
Right.
So it's like being able to stop and wrap my mind around that. And I was like, huh, okay, I'm okay with this. And
Yeah.
it's like loss. So it's a lot of like what you talk about in your podcast about loss. And it's like sometimes loss can take a different avenue. And it's like it's not the grieving of the person, it's the grieving of what you thought they were going to be, or what you hoped they would have been, or what you felt you needed. Or, like it's all these different things. It's like even grief has so many different roads that it could take. And it's like
Yeah.
this one that literally, so maybe we're recording this at the right time because it's like this is right now. And it's one of those moments where it's like, do you want to see her? And I'm like, I don't feel the need to. Like
Yeah.
if she was on her deathbed saying, I need to speak to her, I would show up. I wouldn't be like heartless. I would say if it was me and I said, I need to speak to this person, I would hope that they would give me the grace or the compassion to show up for me to be able to say what it is I felt like I needed to say before I left this world, this game, this game, this game we're playing. So it's
Yeah.
a I would never deny someone that, but I don't feel like I need to. But I also, for me, it might be, maybe it's a little different too, because like I feel like I can connect. So it's like when she passes, I can connect and be like, hey, you okay? I'm okay. Don't worry
Yeah.
about me. But you okay? You're good. Crossed over well? Okay. We're okay.
Yeah, it's like you would show up, but it's coming from a place because you've done the healing and
Mhm.
you've come back to yourself and
Yeah.
you lead yourself now from this like deep, beautiful place that
Yeah.
if you were to show up, it would be for her,
Yeah.
not from a wound that's within yourself that you need her to fill something in you. Like you have that foundation within yourself. You've found it and you've built it over the last few years. So it's just like you could come away from that situation just being like, if she needed to apologize for her own healing, great, but I didn't need to do it for myself or anything that I thought I needed from her to make me feel any sort of way.
Exactly. Yeah. Like some people they will need to say like, hey, I need to speak to you before you go. And that's okay too. But
Yeah.
I'm just not in that space. I'm okay.
That's
I'm okay with it.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an amazing thing. So it was almost like I didn't get like super upset, but I knew like it was like this hankering feeling, when you get that hangry, it was like something was
Yeah.
bugging me. It wasn't that I was hungry, but something was bugging me. And I had that epiphany and I was like, oh, that's what it is. I'm like, oh, huh.
Yeah.
But anytime people are going through moments where they need to heal, I always say, for me, because I feel like everybody pushes the whole find forgiveness, find forgiveness. I'm like, maybe what we need to do, because especially my guides lead me to this all the time. So I tell people, I say, I don't think it starts with forgiveness. I think it starts with understanding. Understand, forgive yourself,
Yeah.
and then, should you choose to extend the forgiveness. But you have to understand the greater picture of it, not just this happened
Yes.
to me. Pull
Well,
yourself, yeah,
yeah, you have to neutralize the feeling around it in order to get the context. And then that's where you can grow the capacity and the compassion and the empathy around it. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. But it comes from being able to step back and
yeah,
seeing the greater picture.
yeah. So I mean, I was upset. I was angry. Like, we're talking about my mom anyway, so let's use her as an example. I was so angry for so long. And when I stopped and pulled myself back from all the situations, all the scenarios, all the everything, it was like I felt so bad for her because she, like I said, she has mental illness and she didn't have the support she needed. But that was the times. It wasn't something that was acknowledged. And then I also looked at it in some of the things that she said to me that were just so mean. And I
Yeah.
couldn't understand until I took myself away from it and I stopped and realized I look like her so much, it's ridiculous. And it's one of those things where it was like a light bulb went off, and I said, she wasn't really saying those things to little me. She was saying those things to herself.
Oh,
And
whew.
I looked so much. It's like take someone who just hates themselves. And then you take
Yeah.
like a child that is like the epitome of them, like looks exactly like them.
Put themselves in front of themselves. Yeah.
And then she just spewed all the hate that she had for herself out onto me. And then little me didn't understand that until I got older, took myself out, looked at the bigger picture, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I'm her mini me. I really am, except taller now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny because I did run into her and she's little. I remember when I was small, she looked so big, but now I see her and I'm like, my God, she's down there. She's down. So
Yeah.
it wasn't a nice interaction, but so it was one of those like, oh, there's that mental illness again. Because normal people don't act like this. Uh, but it was like a moment of like I actually kind of giggled because I was like, wow, not exactly what I remembered, but she's so wee and fragile and I felt for her. But yeah. Yeah, it's a crazy experience, but that's when I started to really understand. And then it went from like being so angry to being like, oh my God, like I feel so bad for her. Like what she said to me, that wasn't for me, that was for herself.
Yeah.
And I was
And
like,
that's
that
such an
is,
empowering realization.
yeah, it was
It's like
so
you
bad.
just like you can just like absolutely just sever it, right? Because you're just like, oh, it's not even about me. I can let this go. I don't have to
Yeah,
carry it anymore. That is
I did.
no.
And then had to work through the part of like feeling so bad for holding so much hate toward this person that I started to view in a completely different light. And that's when the self forgiveness comes in, right?
Yeah, because it's a wound. It's just a wound.
Yeah.
It's just a
So I
wound.
don't like I know the action she took was not okay. The things she did was not okay. To bash me in the head and say the cruel things and all that stuff, not okay. So I'm not justifying it. I'm understanding it.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. No matter what your situation is, no matter what the scenario is, no matter what the occurrence is, there's no need to jump to trying to justify anything. It's the need to understand the bigger picture of it. And if you can do it and it can help you lead your way to healing, that's the key. That's the key.
That's
It's
how we
like
let
going
go.
to, yeah, it's like the narcissist of an ex that I have. It's like to try to make him understand anything, he's not going to. And I feel terrible because it's like an imbalance in the brain. Like, and it's like
Yeah.
I hear other things being said about him, and I'm kind of like, really sucks because you know what? that individual will never feel love the way that I have the capacity of feeling love.
Yeah.
As hefty as an experience as it was to go through a relationship with someone like that, I would always like if I had the opportunity and someone said, which part would you like to play? I will always be the victim because that is a, that to not be able to like to know what love is and to not be able to feel it to the extent that I
Yeah.
do. I'm like, that would be the saddest thing ever. So
That's the prison.
yeah, that's the prison. I'll take this over that any day. And that's where I was like, I don't forgive you because you're just going to keep doing it, but I get that you're not okay either. So, but I feel bad for you. And it's like I tried to give the love that he never could feel. It's like I was trying to make it up for him, and then it made
Right.
lash out even more. And it's like you have to get to the point where you go, okay, I can't go anywhere with this. You have to know when to back up and go, okay, I've done my part, and I'm okay now, right? It's knowing when to let
Yeah.
go too. And I think that's
And
part of
I,
healing with anything is knowing when to let go, when to back up, when to
yeah.
step. Yeah,
And I thought it was interesting too because you were talking about how like a little bit of grief came up. And I think kind of what came to me is that sometimes we put pressure on ourselves to be like, well, I thought I was healed. And it can be as simple as like if again getting curious, getting quiet, that little piece of us that brought the grief up,
yeah,
what version, what age, what experience
yeah,
is and it's just like when we can just see it's like maybe that was like 6-year-old you, and there's just something that this you at your age now is experiencing, that there's something our body remembered that felt similar to whatever happened at that age, and it's just coming up to the surface, and we just have to be like, that's okay. Like, you're okay now. We are
yeah,
okay. We're safe. See it, give her some love, and then it's just like let her be heard. Let her have that little bit of grief. She deserves it because maybe she couldn't feel it at the time. And it's just like, and again, that's how we just like release it, and then we take that shirt off.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it
And
was
it's so
like,
beautiful. It's so
oh,
beautiful to hold space for ourselves in that way. Like it sounds so bizarre, but that's the way I can describe it, that through my own experience. And it's just like, oh, girl, I got you. Like I know my body's remembering something that maybe my like physical memory isn't bringing up, but my body remembers. And it's just like I'm just gonna hold space for it and let it come up and out.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. It's a lot and it's big and it's so yeah, it's just so amazing. It's an
Yeah.
incredible it's an incredible journey, and that's why I said, like, even now, like, there's no point where I'll stop and go, like, "Oh, I got this." Like, just saying, like, literally just yesterday, so just last night, I had that epiphany of and like you said,
Yep.
it was like 10-year-old me who was at a neighbor's
Yep.
house. It was not maybe 9 or 10, and I was at a neighbor's house, and she was the kindest woman, and to this day, I thank her as being the example of what a parent should be and
Yeah.
showing me how to parent so that when I became a mom, I knew how to do it. Like she was the person like, and if I ever see her again, I'll thank her up and down for showing me kindness. Like I know that she had communication with someone else, and I was just like that neglected little kid that she saw and felt terrible for, who was like
Yeah.
starving and malfed and not taken care of. She would take me camping. She would take me they took me on like all these like
I
different
love that.
I know, and it was like it didn't even matter. They just took me because it was like nobody was really there to really care. It was, which is has its sad parts, but thank God because it gave me the opportunity to have her go like, "Hey, like, come on over." Like she showed me how to make hot chocolate. I didn't even know what hot chocolate was. I was like, "What is this?"
Wow.
She's like, "I'm making hot chocolate." I'm like, "What's that?" And I remember her looking at me like, "You kidding me?" You kidding?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Here," and it's just like showing me, and I'm like, "Oh." So it was like when I became a mom, I was like, oh, I'm gonna make hot chocolate for a kid. I remember being pregnant and having that moment of like, oh my God, I'm gonna be the one making the hot chocolate for the kid. And it was like having these moments. And I
It's like
remember,
full circle
yeah, and it was like
with
she
intention.
yeah, she was the mom figure that I needed and never had. And
Yes.
yeah, and she filled my heart so much. And it was like in last night when I had that moment, it was like I was like, you know what? My mom may not have shown me those sides of it, but my mom showed me sides that um, allowed me to have so much understanding in terms of mental illness and in terms of struggle and depression and suicidal tendencies and like all these things. So it's like, as much as she didn't show me that, I had the neighbor that stepped in and did it. And all those sides that my mom showed me allowed me to be a stronger, smarter, more intelligent, more self-sufficient. Like if my mom wasn't that, I wouldn't be this. So it's like she gave me the hard part that allowed me to become the tough person that I am. So it's like I still do give gratitude to my mom because I'm like, thank you. And when people are going through it, I'm like, oh, I recognize this. And you know what? I can
Yeah,
have
she
self.
was your teacher and the neighbor was your earth angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Watching out for you. That's
yeah,
beautiful.
mom and dad taught me all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and my siblings too, and all that. And I give gratitude for all of it. So I think that's where we got to
Yeah.
find is like find the gratitude for what we learned and step away from the rest. And it's like, yeah, so that's where
Yep.
I'm good. Like I'm so good right now in my life. I think that I'm 41, and I've never been at peace like this. I've never had this. It's like this is my
That's
first.
amazing.
Yeah, it's my
Yeah.
first time having this, and finally being at peace. And it's an
Yeah.
amazing feeling. So anybody who has this, I'm like, wow, how long did you have this for? Because I'm just new to this. It's a beautiful thing.
But what a beautiful and profound story. And like, thank you so much for sharing this so openly. I love that you're writing a book about it because I think that there's going to be people who hear this along the way that just are like, oh my God, I so needed that. Because
Yeah,
we can feel so alone in the world sometimes, and we have to share these stories so that we remind ourselves of our humanity and our collective,
yeah,
just our collectiveness, right? We're all intertwined in some way or another, so we need to remind each other of that.
exactly. Yeah.
So
And that's why
thank
I wanted
you.
to write the book. And the book is like letting all that out and letting
Yeah.
out the moments of it, but kind of reconfirming like it's okay. Like you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because a
It's like
lot of
your
people,
healing guide
yeah,
for someone
yeah,
else, your survival guide, your healing guide, so someone else can heal too. And
yeah.
know that it's possible and just have that like hope.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that like in teaching, so like I said, I love teaching. I love it. I adore it. Like that's why when my kids were little, anything I could teach them, I'd sit and I'd have patience at the wazoo. And I'd be like, it's okay, however you want to do it. And I learned like people learn different ways. So some learn by
Yep.
doing, seeing, like all these different avenues. So in terms of my book guided, it's like the techniques. So the people who are technique driven. So you've got the journaling
Cool.
pages, you've got like the week by week step through of like do this technique, do that. And then it's like the catch ups of like, how's that going? And then this book that I'm writing is more for the people who need to hear the story of like the hard stuff so that they can go, yeah,
Yep.
they got the nitty, they got the grit, they've got the like they're down in the dirt like me.
Yep.
But look at what they're writing. And it's like the people who learn that way. So that's where I don't see myself just stopping at this. I see myself writing other books, but it's all about teaching how to like come out the other end. It's how to, you know what I mean? How to understand
Well,
it.
yeah, and I was just saying like your first two are like the polarities of his experience. Your first book is very much from the divine
Yeah,
perspective, and this one it's like the absolute nitty-gritty, like down in the dirt human experience. It's like the two things, but they work in tandem as like who we are.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I'm
Well,
proud
I
of
can't.
it.
Yeah, I can't wait till you're ready to share it and we'll have to talk about it more. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you read it before I publish it. You can give me your opinion on
sounds
it.
amazing.
You're good.
Yes, I would love that. Awesome. I don't know if you have anything else to add. Remind people again where they can find you, which platforms you're on, and yeah.
Yeah, so I got my website, teresaporter.ca. You can go check out recorded, shareable readings on there, so you can get an idea of how I am, how I present myself. You can book sessions, courses, all sorts of stuff through there, and get info on me. On TikTok, I'm at Teresa Porter. On YouTube and Instagram, I'm at Teresa Porter 777. And then
Okay.
my email is teresaporter777 at gmail.com. So it's all like Teresa Porter
Yeah.
777. Um,
Perfect.
yeah, I've got my course that's coming up. I was going to do it at the end of March, but actually it's going to start April 7th. So I remember when I was doing it, I kept getting like the threes, which was the price. And then I
Yeah.
kept getting like, don't do it on Easter. Don't do it on Easter. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do it March 30th. And then it's not Easter. And then I kept getting,
Easter.
don't do it on Easter. And I was like, I'm not. I've got this. It's and then somebody pointed out, they're like, that's Easter. And I'm like, that's why it kept coming up.
That's funny.
So yeah, so it's learn your energy, but it's also like mediumship level one. So it's
Cool.
something I, like, again, love teaching. So I'm super excited to start that. So it's accommodating for anybody and everybody, but it's an amazing base for those with abilities, or it's just learning your body, learn how to key in, learn how to, know your own intuition, learn how to do all that. What's holding you back so you can push yourself forward in the best way possible. Um, yeah, it's like 4 weeks. I'm so excited for it. But the sign up for that's on my website too. So if anybody's interested, check it out there.
Awesome. Yeah, if you're interested, check her out. Give her a follow on social media and we'll
Thank
follow
you.
your journey together.
Yeah, thank you very much. And
Amazing.
I'll keep you posted on the other book.
Amazing. Well, thanks for hanging out tonight. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be a follow-up at some point.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, friends, well, take care and we'll see you in the next episode. And if you have a sign off, you're free to say it now.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. A little different than my usual, but I guess you all get to see a little bit about me now instead of me questioning everybody else on joy. So thank you guys so much. And I hope you all have an amazing and beautiful rest of your night.
All right, good night, everyone.
Bye.